what's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Grit.
Hey,
What up,
y'all?
Episode 4 of The Grit. We back here, y'all. How was everybody's week? Everybody had a good week?
Real good.
So far,
yes,
so good.
yes, yes.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Tristan, what was your week like, man?
My week was interesting. I went back to work after being on medical leave, and there was a lot of changes that I really just wasn't aware of. Like, I didn't even have my same job title anymore. Y'all
Okay,
really
so a lot.
reconstructed.
Yeah.
Okay,
lots of
right.
change. Lots of change.
Right.
So other than that, it's nothing.
What about you, V? How was your week? What you get into this week?
Well, it's my daughter's birthday. Happy birthday.
Hey!
Happy birthday, baby. Well, I've been planning for her birthday, so my week has been a little hectic. But I'm making it, I'm a super mom, so I got to do what I got to do.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Come
And
on.
one of my personal highlights.
Okay.
Me and Aaron got a chance to check out A Wrinkle in Time. Oh,
How was it?
It was a good movie. It was a good movie. It was a lot of it was obviously adapted from a book that was written 50 years ago.
A little more, I think 1960s.
Yeah.
I remember reading it in like elementary school and everything. Was just fascinated about it, and so I was happy to be able to see, the actual movie. And it was good. The cinematography, the graphics, and just the overall.
Graphics were definitely on point.
I was like, we should have saw this in 3D. But the message of just love and like good versus evil and just being yourself was and being yourself was enough to put into this world and to bring forth that positive love message. This is something I really was able to take away from it.
For me personally, it was great too because I have young daughters, and they look a lot like the lead in the movie who was a teenage biracial girl.
Yeah.
And it was great to see how she was sort of the protagonist of the film. And so, in a lot of ways, like Black Panther really highlighted us and our abilities as people of color to sort of be the protagonist of it all. I feel like A Wrinkle in Time kind of follows suit with that. So it was nice to see that.
Yeah.
I gotta catch it.
I gotta see it too.
Right, seriously. Shout out to Ava DuVernay. She's a black woman director in Hollywood, and she's been doing a lot with different TV series and even like the movies and stuff. So that's something also. It's just like you gotta support that.
Yeah,
right.
And it was great to hear too that this is the first time that a black female director was given this sort of budget to work with from Disney. And she got a budget of upwards of $100 million to direct this film. So,
That's good.
it was great. She had the resources at her disposal in order to create a masterpiece. And I think a lot of people, have already shown positive criticism of the movie. And, I think we can really rally behind this movie in the way that we did behind Ryan Coogler and Black Panther. And see other, women, black women of color, break these glass ceilings and these barriers that exist in Hollywood.
Right, because that is something, especially within Hollywood, you see like white males, directors pushing forward, these big blockbusters and everything, and she's really been breaking that glass ceiling, being, I don't know the percentage, but probably a low percentage of women, let alone black women directors in Hollywood to that magnitude to work with, like, Disney and everything. So that's something that I feel like is amazing, especially going into
very amazing.
March for being Women's History Month. That's something to even really celebrate. Like, okay,
Absolutely.
Right. Shout out to the women.
And that really kind of provides a nice transition into the topic that we're going to be discussing today, which is, sort of a celebration of women's history and talking about a lot of the things that, have plagued women in our society over time.
Right.
And, one of those big things is the glass ceiling that exists for women in the workplace. So sort of piggybacking off of the success that Ava DuVernay has experienced here in the first week plus of the release of A Wrinkle in Time. There was a lot of build up for it, and then with the release, a lot of people turned out to support the film.
Yeah.
But just sort of piggybacking on that, like, just open up with what is sort of that glass ceiling. What is it, and why does it exist for women?
So the glass ceiling, completely paraphrasing it, is basically when you have a certain position or and within a work environment, and for a woman or a minority where you can do the work of these different, like a higher level, like CEO, CFO, or even president of a company or corporation. However, because of your gender, or even your race or something, there's only a certain level that you can obtain. So where you can see the top, but you can't get to the top only because, you know, you're a woman or you're a minority. So oftentimes that kind of goes into with like gender biases of specific positions within like the workplace. So that's something, going back to Ava DuVernay, where why we say she's shattering is because she's showing like, okay, yes, just because I'm a woman or a black woman, you know, I can, you know, produce just as good or even better products than, you know, her white male counterparts. So.
Yeah. Okay. You know what that kind of reminds me of? Like back in the day when they had like the proposal to get rid of affirmative action.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: like a lot of people thought that was because of, you know, black people or whatever.
Yeah.
No, it was actually okay. In my theory, I think that it was based around women.
Yeah.
Because at this point in time, the college graduates, the women were graduating at a faster rate than the males were.
Absolutely.
So naturally, but here's the thing. Naturally, so in corporate America, people didn't want women to be the CEOs and CIOs and all that good stuff of the companies. So then it was like, okay, well, we need to try to switch the game plan up a little bit because the playing field isn't quite even because we got more women graduating than men.
Right.
So I think that may have been kind of the same type of thing where at that point to this glass ceiling as well.
I agree with you. I think, you know, Proposal 2 here in Michigan, particularly that where the voters in the state got rid of, you know, college acceptance based off of race or gender or sexuality or a lot of different variants. But yeah, I think it did. You know, I think the people who were in power sort of felt a pushback. Yeah. And they got scared by it. And we're like, we don't want this equal playing field, so we're going to try to eliminate what gives a lot of people equality or empowerment. You know what I mean? And so we see that throughout history.
I honestly want to say, shout out to the women, because I see it every day down my Instagram, Facebook timeline, and they're like taking over. So it's like, even though, they don't want us to be empowered, we are empowered.
Absolutely.
I see it all the time. Like, seriously, even like you said in the work environment, how men are, you know, taking the lead. They were saying like women, they don't step up and negotiate. And I feel like we have to step up and negotiate. You know, so me as a woman, I feel like I'm going to start stepping up more and negotiate what I want. So women, shout out to y'all and start, you know, speaking up about it.
And that's true, because even in something as like being funny, I remember the stats with that, and they're saying like it's not that, you know, men are funnier than women, it's just that men take more chances and just putting themselves out there versus women won't, you know, unless they are secure in like, okay, saying something that's funny or whatever, you know, they won't, you know, be as more forthgoing as men will in certain situations. So that is something I feel like us as women, we do need to push forward regardless of if situations have been different in the past. It's just pushing forward and just speaking up more.
So with that being said, I feel inclined to bring this up.
Okay.
So from women's point of view, what are your opinions on the controversy that's going on with Monique? Like, what are your thoughts on the pros and cons of this situation? I have to know.
Well, two things. At first, I was just like, okay, what is she doing? Why is she saying all of this? However, when I did sit down and actually listen to what she was saying and how she was saying it, you know, on one end, it was just like, okay, are you just trying to get some, you know, like self-notoriety type of thing or whatever?
Yeah, that's how I feel.
However, and I get it, you know, I guess on one end, it's just like, okay, the times that we're living in now, it is like, okay, what have you done for me lately type of thing, where, okay, well, what have you done within these recent years to give you that type of notoriety to be able to, you know, be paid that amount of money. However, it wasn't that long ago. She was just in a movie, you know, 2016, where she was in a major movie where it did, because she was in it, it did promote it more, and people, she does have a following. And one thing she did say when she was on, I think the Breakfast Club, how, you know, Netflix already has some of her specials going on, and that it's been on there for quite some time. time. So it's like to have that argument of you already have this special of mine that's been on there for quite some time without my permission, without me getting anything, and it's been on here for like maybe a few years or so, and you continue to have this particular thing of mine on there. Why wouldn't you use that as a way to show people that, you know, I am worth more than that? I do have a following. You know what I'm saying? Like, how come that wasn't calculated in it? So it does bring it to like, okay, maybe that should be looked at more, because she even brought up Wanda Sykes and how she was only paid like half of what they offered Netflix. She was only paid like that, I think $250,000. Exactly.
It was an offer. They didn't
offered that. Right. She didn't go
but
through it, but it's just like,
for a special.
Yeah, when you bring up those things, it is like, come on now. Like, and she never said I need to get paid as much, but she was saying if you consider me as a legend, why not pay me like a legend?
Right, and I definitely agree with that, because I watched it, because everybody was, at first I had the same mindset, like, okay, do she want some attention? And then I'm like, I'm not boycotting Netflix, like, right, like,
shoot, I gotta watch a new thing.
Wait. I got a fire stick. Hold on, wait. Right. But I'm not boycotting Netflix. Then I started listening to her, which I'm still not boycotting Netflix, by the way. But anyways, I started listening to her, and I'm like, you know, what she's saying is definitely correct, because I feel like, why, you know, like she said, if you consider me as a legend, why don't you want to pay me more? Yeah. And I love Monique. I love watching her. It's nothing that she has put out here that I just felt like, you know, I wasn't interested in, but I did hear like a lot of stuff going on as far as in the past of her being like, what is it, blackballed or black something? Yeah. So I think that had a lot to do with it, honestly.
I mean, but she did explain on the interview of what it was, because it was more so of her like speaking up. Yeah. And oftentimes you do have in settings where somebody actually speaks up. So say, for example, long story short, she's saying like it was a situation where somebody was either talking down to somebody or treating somebody in a certain way where they shouldn't have, you know, was disrespectful. Even if it was like the water boy or whatever. And so she spoke up for that person. So she was saying because of those occasions, she's been deemed as the troublemaker. Right. You know, because she did speak up for other people.
And again, I'll say this.
It's just like,
I'll say this. A lot of the stories that we've been getting have been one-sided.
Exactly.
You know, like even the stories that she claims to have made her become blackballed were one-sided. Like we only heard from one set of people. You know, and now her retorts or her responses to this are only her responses. It'd be nice if we could get all these people on one man.
I mean, that's what
kind of iron out details, to be honest about it.
Yeah, she was saying,
because
like,
she said, like, you know, she said that Tyler Perry has called and apologized to her for things that happened in the past. So she said these things. Are they honest? We would hope so. We would hope that she wouldn't, you know, come on and say anything, but we don't know for sure.
Right. Honestly, you know? I want to say, like, in a workplace, when women speak up, I feel like it's like they don't, it's like an issue. And it's like, why is it an issue every time? Why do we have to be labeled as a bitch when we speak up or when we say something? So we're hard to work with. But with men, you have rappers that's like, you know, just out here just like saying whatever they want to say. They're disrespectful, or just men period. They say what they want to say, and they have like, you know, whatever they say what they want to say, it's okay. It's okay.
I think that's a general rule of thumb a lot of times, where if you're even in the, you know, I've been in corporate settings where I've heard, you know, if a woman CEO gets up and commands attention and like, you know, is dominant over the room, then she's looked at as she's emotional or bossy or controlling. Whereas if a man gets up and does the exact same thing, it's like, man, he's a leader. Right. So, you know what I mean? So there's definitely a double standard in the way people lead, in the way that people follow, and even in the way that people are looked at based on, you know, their attitude or like how they present themselves in front of the room. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I've been in that situation plenty of times where I've heard backhanded comments about women who lead a certain way and men who lead a certain way. And I think, you know, to touch on one of y'all points that y'all made a little bit ago in terms of like the glass ceiling, you know, I hear a lot of people say, well, that doesn't exist. Well, I think it clearly exists because even in here in 2018, we're still talking about firsts for people of African American descent. People of African descent. You know what I mean? Like Jordan Peele at the Oscars was the first black man to have won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. You know, when we're looking at women, like we just said, Ava DuVernay was the first woman with a 9-figure budget for a Disney movie. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
but what I find that's interesting though, how they ain't gonna try to discredit Jordan Peele by saying, "Oh, well, this is the best comedy." Wait, comedy?
Yeah.
Wait, how is this funny? Like,
Wait, no.
just because Jordan Peele is a comedian doesn't mean that this movie is funny. Like, if you really looked at the undertones of the movie, this is not funny at all. This is reality.
Yeah. And I think that's what historically how we've been boxed in a lot of ways, and why we haven't been able to crack certain glass ceilings. Because, you know, women especially, they'll put them in a box and they'll say, you do this well, but you can't do everything well. You know what I mean?
Which is funny though, but it's funny how you say that, because just taking it back to World War II, when, you know, all the men, you know, we had the draft going on and you had to have a lot of women going into the workforce. They held this country up.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I mean, they held it up. They did what they were supposed to do in that time of need, because what were you going to do? You know, most of the men were gone. So they had to go into those factories and everything to actually like keep everything, you know, abreast of, to keep the country moving forward. And then once that was over, it was just like, go back to the kitchen. What?
Right.
But the thing is, just it's like I don't understand where the disconnect is of, like, it's got to be one or the other again. Like, why can't it be
like
both?
Tristan said earlier, it's a matter of protecting those in power. You know, it's like, we'll give you all a short leash, but when y'all show that y'all can extend past that, we want to put y'all back.
Yank it back.
That's so crazy to me.
And that's historically, that's how, you know, I'm saying that from a male perspective. Historically, that's how men operate. Like,
and it's just like, does it really work though?
Yeah, you know, in particular men who don't have power, and you know, as black men, we don't really have a lot of power. You know, and so the people, the men who aren't of color, who have the power and who exercise power, oftentimes feel like we can give you a certain amount, but then as soon as you jeopardize our situation of power, then we're gonna rein it back in. We're gonna pull it back and let y'all know what the real situation is. You know, and I think that's a big reason as to why women are still knocking on this glass ceiling, trying to break through it, because the people who are looking down through that glass ceiling are saying, y'all stay where y'all are. You know, because that's what makes us feel most comfortable. You know, we don't want y'all in boardrooms.
But that's crazy, because it's like, okay, we're not going to like change who we are or try to be someone else because to make y'all feel comfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So we have to, you know, be ourselves. And it's like, you have to step up wherever, what makes you feel comfortable. It's either you deal with us or you don't.
And and it's not even like in a sense of we're trying to take over type of thing. We're just trying to live. You know, I feel like, I mean, going back to Black Panther, you know, it showed you where a world where you had women living to their full potential and men living to their full potential, but it wasn't a competition. It was like we're working together. Exactly. You know, which it is very evident, because pretty much every civil issue or movement, you have women in there, like working the grounds, you know, like really pushing that movement forward, if you will.
Yeah, and I want to say sometimes it's just our personality to be like dominant and just be ourselves and, you know, take control, and because we're great at this, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like who's the man, who's the woman, who's the, you know, it's not like it's not about that. It's more so like, this is me, this is my personality, and it's about, you know, whether we click well or we don't. But this is me. Sometimes women end up having this like mask on just to let a man be a man. And it's like, you know what? You have to do what's best for you and be happy with who you are. If this is what you're great at, do it. Don't just like, you know, put that aside just because you want to let a man be a man.
Right.
You know, even in the workplace, it's like, you know, just do whatever you do, whatever you're best at. Like, just put your best and all, and put all your effort into that, you know?
I agree with you, because, like, with every successful man, there is a surrounding group of women that helped him to get to where he is, or help sustain his level of where he is at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
And no, just to sort of build on what you guys were saying, you know, we're talking about gender bias and the glass ceiling, but obviously there are other issues in society that you know, sort of limit women in different ways and in different facets, you know, and I think one of those is the pervasiveness of like rape culture that exists in our society, you know, and it's a weird sort of dynamic as to like what rape culture really is, right? Like, because there's so much, like, there's a clear understanding of what rape is, and then there's a gray area of what rape isn't, and then there's a huge issue, like there's a huge series of circumstances in the middle that sort of are where rape culture exists, right? Like, because we all know that rape is, like, if you walking down the street and punch a woman in her face and like throw her in the back of your car and have sex with her and then like discard her, okay, that's rape. Clearly that's rape.
Definitely rape.
Clear cut.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's the image of what a lot of people who dismiss rape culture have in their mind. Like, oh, well, no, I didn't duct tape her and have sex with her, so that wasn't rape.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people are wrong in what their image of rape culture is. And then there's a lot of women too, or a lot of people who see like regrettable sex as rape.
Right, yeah.
And that's also not rape. I mean, one of the most prevalent examples we have of that is like the Aziz Ansari situation.
Yeah.
Where, there was a whole article written about him and a girl, he met at a party. They went back to one of their houses, had, a sexual encounter that wasn't typical. It was some awkwardness that led into it. But she consented to sex, and then she thought she didn't, but she thought she did, and it was a weird situation that was ultimately sounded like the typical regrettable sex that all of us might have encountered at one time or another in our lives. And then months later, she said, I was raped.
Yeah.
It's like
those situations, I feel like it's like, I remember I went through a training, and long story short, the police officer said, ladies, if regrettable sex is not rape, if you regret it's not rape. Don't, however, consent for fellas. If you don't get a clear yes, that is not consent. So in those situations, it does become a little, like you said, the gray area, because it's like, okay, when does it become a rape situation, and when does it, those lines get crossed and it gets really foggy. So, I mean, to me, I feel like everyone needs to be more aware. Even though you're in the moment, you still need to be aware of what's going on. Just kind of backtracks on, women who have experienced rape, and, it's a clear issue of this is rape. This is happening. And then when they come forth and then they're not believed because of, women who have, claimed rape in the past, and it wasn't necessarily rape.
You mean like Ayanna Jackson? The one who talked about Tupac and them raped her and what have you?
Right.
Like, that whole interview with DJ Vlad was just like, what? Like, you went from, we was on the dance floor, and I touched the tip. I put my lips on the tip of it. Then it went to, all right, well, I at the club. Wait, that's two different. That's two different things.
That's. Yeah, I mean, and that's
I didn't watch that interview.
Yeah, where you say that.
Wow, you should watch that.
I haven't watched it either. So
you should. Yeah.
That's interesting, because
I think it's it's important to point out too that rape culture isn't just about sex.
Right. No, it's not.
Rape culture is about anything that sort of perpetuates this stereotype that women can be treated as objects.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that includes anything from conversations that guys have when they're with their fellas inside of their apartments or their houses or whatever. A guy's night out can easily turn into a situation where they are perpetuating rape culture.
Right.
It could be a guy in the club grabbing a girl in an unwanted way or making an offhanded remark, and her unwelcome advances turn into shaming of this individual.
I've had that happen before.
You know what I mean?
I've had that happen before, where it's like a guy grabbed my waist, and it just made me feel uncomfortable, because I'm like, I don't know you. I feel like when it becomes physical, you gotta keep your hands to yourself. Approach a woman the right way. Come talk to me. Don't grab me, because at this point, it's like, it makes me feel in defense, like, why are you touching me? It doesn't make me feel like, oh, hey, but it just made me like, why are you touching me?
No, it doesn't. And even with women on our part as well, because I know that's something, and I'm sure it's happened before, but probably more so even now than, or within the recent years, or however time span, but we have been more forthcoming with our actions and doing the same thing to men, which is not, that doesn't help the situation if we're doing the grabbing and we're doing, certain things where men are doing to us.
And we
that's not something that it doesn't extinguish the whole rape culture thing. It just continues to perpetuate.
Right, and it's not fair.
It's not fair either, because just because a man is a man, you don't know if this man wants you to touch on him either.
Yeah, he might be married.
Exactly.
He might be in a relationship with a woman. So it's like, you can't just go grabbing on a man and touching on a man, and you don't you know, you don't know him.
Yeah. You know,
it's
you
the
have
same
to be
way.
consenting adults, you know.
And then, you know, because when it happened to you, you scream rape. Oh my God. You know,
Or
it's
violation
like
or assault or something.
It's like,
yeah, because there's been several occasions where like I was out at the club where I was dancing, what have you. You know, I'm getting it in. I'm getting my 2 steps in, what have you. Next thing I know, you know, young lady comes to me like, "Hey, how you doing?" Wait, that's how you wave? Oh,
Right,
wait,
right.
that was my junk.
Excuse
That was my junk. Okay. I mean, I know you felt the way you was dancing, but that don't mean you got to grab it. But
Right,
I mean,
right. But that just
Right.
shows how easily messages can be misconstrued. You know what I'm saying? Like, even on both ends. So that's why I'm saying, like, everybody needs to be aware
I couldn't imagine
of
that
what the
happening to
other
me.
person is, you know, sending each other in those messages.
Yeah.
You know, just what we're, because we're always sending messages, regardless if it's a clear no or a clear yes. You have to be aware of what
Right.
that other person that you're dealing with, those messages, what they see, even if it's just a turn of the head or they might not, they may look a little sheepish or whatever. You just need to be aware and step outside yourself and your pleasure outside of what it is that you're trying to achieve with that person, because then it becomes that gray area again.
Yeah.
Well, that goes into just people stepping up and saying what's on their mind and speaking up about the situation, whether it's male or female. If you don't feel comfortable with something, open your mouth to say like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this, or excuse me, you know, don't do that. You know, you have to speak up. You know, don't wait months or years later down the line. I know sometimes it could be like a touchy subject and it could be hurtful, I understand, but you know, you got to speak up right then and there to get, you know, to stop the situation from happening, you know, because you can be an advocate for other women or other, you know, men as well. So
I'll say something to that as well, you know, because a lot of times that's what we want. That's ideal,
right?
But we don't know what people have been through in their past to like promote them to speak up or not speak up or remain silent. You know, it could be a situation where somebody is triggered by an event,
right,
where they might have been in a situation in their past that traumatized them, and then they go right back to that place, and then they freeze up and aren't able to say no or aren't able to, you know, verbalize their feelings when something happens.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So it's, I mean, the onus is on, you know, there is responsibility from both parties to sort of extinguish that environment of rape culture.
Right.
But it's more on the people who, you know, it's not on the people who are oppressed to stop their oppression. It's on the people who are oppressed or who are doing the oppression to sort of realize what they're doing and become enlightened by what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? So it's on the people who perpetuate rape culture to say, this is wrong, you know, and it takes allies to point that out in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? So, you know, I really hate when people say, "Oh, I have a wife" or "I have daughters," to sort of say like that's what made me realize that it's pervasive because didn't you love women enough prior to having a wife or a daughter to understand?
Like you had a mom before,
You know what I'm saying?
Or she's just a person,
right? Exactly, right. So this is another human being treated with respect,
right?
But you know what I'm saying. So in a lot of ways, I feel like
I know it's hard, but I don't mean to cut you off, but I know it's hard. But sometimes, like when you speak your truth, you know, that's kind of like your peace. You know, even though sometimes it do take time, it may take years, it may take however long, but you know, speaking your truth and being able to have an outlet and release and help, it will help other women and help other men, help other people. So speaking up is very important, whether no matter how long it takes. You know,
absolutely.
So no matter how long it takes, even if you just speak about it, not even just publicly, just to someone that you confide in, but it's just like an outlet to
it's a release.
Yeah, it's a release.
And I feel like we do, there needs to be allies, especially, you know, when it comes to men and women type of thing. You do need men to, you know, aware of, you know, like who you're involved with, you know, and just on an individual basis, even within male and male relationships, female and female relationships, because, you know, everybody has different mindsets, everybody has different, you know, levels of being comfortable with certain things. So brushing past that, this is how we been doing things. Like, no, you need to understand and be aware of the people who are involved in that particular environment that you're on. And
I agree with you saying. I actually recently read something about men mentoring women. Okay. And I'm like, that is great, because it's like it gives men a chance to really understand women and talk with them and connect with them and get their side of things and get a better understanding. And then men especially men that are fathers, you know, they can connect with women and give them their opinion the same way that they would give for example, how you would talk to your daughter. You know, you can talk to grown women as well, because sometimes I feel like they forget, like when men are out, they forget like these are mothers, these are your sisters, these are your grandmothers, like whatever. You know, they forget that, but. You know, they have these daughters, they talk to them like, hey, don't, make sure they protect them. They protect them over their kids. Don't get me wrong. So men mentoring women, I think that was like a great idea. So I think that if more men step up and talk to women, whether it's their sister, like, hey, how you been? You been okay? You know, even if they don't mentor, like, how you been? You been okay? What's been going on in your life? I feel like that's a great idea.
Okay. Yeah. Something that kind of makes me nervous, I guess, within our society, our country, is, okay, women working in the White House.
Grab them. No, sorry.
So, okay.
I already know what you're going to say. I mean, I got it. Is
yeah.
Let them use you.
Okay. So,
let them use you.
Our president. And some of his previous speeches of grabbing them by the...
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Can I say it?
No.
Okay.
We know when you grab.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be quiet.
Okay, we're laughing about it like right now in this context, but like legitimately, it makes me nervous for like interns or something at the White House.
That is true.
Because consider like everything that happened with the FBI and how people just mysteriously end up losing their jobs.
Yeah,
that's true.
So what do you do when the policy, procedure, and politics come into place in a situation like that, though?
Yeah. When the most powerful person in the country says it's okay to disrespect women, and everybody working under him says, you know, he's created this environment, this culture within the workplace that says basically women can be treated as materialistic objects. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, that's a strange dynamic that comes into play in that situation. Yeah. And we see it, we see it every day, man. We see it every day in our lives and in our jobs. And, I'm not about to sit up here and play innocent where I haven't had, off the wall conversations with friends about women.
Right.
However, I have the discernment not to ever take that in the public. And I'm trying to become more conscious as a man to stop having those kinds of conversations because they could leak into people's subconscious. People who aren't as mentally strong or people who don't have the wherewithal not to approach women in casual conversation that they have with men, like the casual conversation that men have among themselves, which I'm sure women probably have those conversations as well. Yeah. Like it's not okay to, project that upon women, in any way, shape, or form. And so I'm just trying to have the wherewithal among myself and with friends to like not even engage in those type of talks or conversations.
I like that because you're right, because everybody's not mentally as strong as you are. Everybody don't think the same, so it's kind of like you got to be conscious and aware of that, because someone can take something you said and just have it in their mind, engraved in their mind, like it's okay.
Right.
It's okay to do certain things when it's really not.
Yeah. So accountability.
Right.
Absolutely.
Accountability. Yeah, accountability.
And I think that's a good note to sort of end today's conversation, and we touched on a lot of things. Again, we talked about a lot of things in society that are burdens to women, not just a pervasive rape culture, but glass ceilings and gender bias as well. And so I think it's a lot to sort of walk away with. And we all even touched on some things that we could take away in terms of Tristan touched on like how to sort of alter the workplace or have an understanding that women surround powerful men. And are sort of the backbone of society and just the upbringing. And I sort of touched on it, personal accountability and not perpetuating stereotypes and having conversations with people where I think it might lead down to something, detrimental or toxic for people. So that being said, turn it over to my co-host Veronica here to send everybody off.
Women, I want to say, please speak up about your situation. If anything has ever happened to you, or if you're going through something, talk to someone. You don't have to speak about it publicly, but just someone you can confide in and just have a sense of relief. We are strong no matter what, honestly. So speaking up is part of being strong. So speaking up, speaking about it, and changing the situation, and just try to overcome the pain and speak up and push through so that this can become the past and not your future.
Absolutely.
So you guys, with that being said, leave your comments below and let us know what you think about tonight's episode.
Push to empower, y'all.
Push to empower.
That's been the grit.
Next week.
We out.
Word.
All right. You guys have a great week.